Hi, I'm Vivek Sanghi, and I have my colleague here, Joey Pan. We come from Affinity Solutions, and we want to talk about how we've built a marketing cloud platform that delivers high-speed analytics at scale. So just to start out very briefly about who we are. So we are a machine learning and big data analytics company, and what we do essentially is we are purveyors of what you could call as consumer spend behavior data signals. And the way we derive and shape this signal is on the basis of credit and debit card transaction data. So we receive a nightly feed of credit and debit card transactions for about 60 million cards across the United States. These 60 million cards correspond to about 10 billion odd transactions a year, which are in turn originating from about 4,000 banks and financial institutions. So historically, our company built and managed loyalty programs and card-linked offer programs for banks and financial institutions. And that led us to have access to this data that I'm talking about. And it gave us usage rights to be able to use this data for marketing purposes. So it's all very kosher, nothing up my sleeve. It's very legit. And so what we started doing about 2 years ago was we started to build a marketing cloud platform based on this data to enable some usual use cases for marketeers and advertisers, but with a totally unprecedented level of efficacy and accuracy. The key things about our data and our uniqueness is that we receive our data every night. So it's fresh. And so, for instance, in marketing parlance, if you do measurement, for example, you measure the performance of a campaign, you don't have to wait for 6 weeks after the campaign. You can actually turn around a measurement literally within days. And what that means is that you're able to use measurement as a diagnostic tool versus a postmortem tool. So the freshness of our data and the agility of our data is very important. Secondly, it's individual level transaction data. So we have what is known as PII with our data, and so personally identifiable information like zip11 addresses. And so we are able to match every transaction we get to exposure IDs that an ad network might provide us or a DSP might provide us. So we can do transaction by transaction matching to be able to come up with sales lift, for example. Right. Similarly, we enable targeting. So let me talk about the products that we enable as a result of our initiative here. So basically, think of us as providers of 3 key products, actually 4, but I'll focus on 3. So we've got spend insights, biographs, closed loop measurements, and then we also enable some precision marketing campaigns for our bank and financial institution customers. But bottom line is, spend insights is a very basic diagnostic that an advertiser can use to first and foremost understand what their competitive landscape is. So once you come in to run, say you're a Target store and Target Corporation and you want to run a campaign, the first thing you want to understand is who are your customers that spend with you, at various levels, and where else do they buy? What else do they spend a lot of money at Walmart, at Macy's? To what level? How much more do they spend there or less do they spend there compared to you? Because then you can start to target your campaign to say, am I trying to win over some competitive customers or am I just trying to target some new customers? So Spend Insights is a very key product. And again, this is seeded and rooted in our individual level transaction data, right? Biographs is the next product. This is more popularly known in the industry as audiences or targeting. So once you have figured out what you want your campaign to be because you know where you stand, then you can get into biographics to say, what is the kind of audience, what's the demographic, what's the segment of market? Are you trying to target people who eat at McDonald's, or are you trying to target people who go get their services, auto service done at a Ford Quick Lane, for example, right? So you want to know who you're targeting. So we have syndicated segments that we have. We have category-based segments, and we also have brand-based segments. So we can segment people who are Target shoppers or Walmart shoppers or McDonald's eaters or United Airlines flyers, right? So we can do that. So that's biographics. And again, this is seeded in real transaction data So it's very efficacious because, imagine there are leaders in the industry who've built a whole, business out of a panel of some 50,000 households. And here we are talking about tens of millions of, points versus 50,000 data points. So the accuracy and efficacy is much higher. And then finally, closed loop measurement is all about measuring the efficacy of your campaign. I talked about this a little bit earlier, where you execute a campaign and then you want to know how did it perform. Well, the state of the art has been, oh, you saw my ad, I displayed the ad, therefore, give me some, rev share. Or you clicked on my ad, or you walked into a location based on location. But none of that really gets to the holy grail of did you buy? Because unless you tell me you bought, I could have walked into that store for anything, right? Maybe I was chasing my 11-year-old who ran in and my mobile device said I went there, but I really transacted nothing. So that's another product. And again, if you think about it, the accuracy and freshness of our data feeds right into it, right? Because I can very definitively say that you went into that store, into that Ford Quick Lane store, you got your car serviced, and oh, by the way, you never went there for the last 6 months. So you are a net new customer versus somebody who goes there anyways. So you are attributable for that. And the reason I'm describing all of this is because this is all driven by our underlying platform that we've built, right? The Marketing Cloud platform. And so, at one end, we receive transaction data that I talked about, and our platform processes that, right? And there's a ton of processing that goes on, and Joey, my colleague, will speak to the overall infrastructure in a moment in detail. And then, of course, there are occasions where we work directly with the retail brand, where one of our clients, the biggest home improvement retailer in the country, they send us their CRM file every month with 60 to 80 million consumers in it, and we actually use our machine learning models to score those consumers to say, you are likely to undertake a home remodel in the next 30 days with a 90% probability, because you have exhibited certain spend behavior patterns which we have modeled and realized that they flag you as a high probability home remodeler. Now, God forbid that happens, because you're now going to be slammed with all kinds of promotions from the home improvement retailer, because you'll spend anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 with them. So they want you, right? So that's the power of this signal and this data. And so really, I'd like to now hand it off to my colleague Joey Pan, and he'll talk about how our infrastructure enables this, and how we are doing it at scale.
Yeah, so thanks, Vivek. So this is about the on-the-hood stuff we built. We call it our Marketing Cloud platform. The architecture, we enable all the products. So one thing worth noting of this architecture is it's a hybrid one. When I call it a hybrid, means part of this infrastructure runs on premise, which is our own data center, our own servers, and another part of it is running on cloud, which specifically is Amazon AWS. So I will briefly walk through the data flow, and then we go to the next one to explain why we go with this hybrid model. So the data we currently get are mostly from those financial institutions, banks, credit union, processors. So we ingest those data, right? And this part is done on premise. And the processing engine there is our MapR cluster. So we use their product called the CDP, which has a lot of built-in components like Hadoop, Hive, all these kind of usual suspects there. And then once we pre-process the data, we actually push out a anonymized data set out to AWS. And then we publish the data into Redshift, which is a high-performance data warehouse for analytics purpose. And then we hook up that with Tableau, right? So we can render reports, we can show the analytics based on these data sets. And another thing worth noting here is that we also use some product or technology called Quabo. So the nice thing is they can help us manage a cluster on demand. So we can scale anytime on cloud if we need a large computation power, right? And then on top of that, we are running our API server cloud with many API servers. And essentially, right, when we are delivering these products like, the closed loop measurements, the insights, a bar graph, it will be done via our APIs, right? So this is how we deliver our product. So that part of the product is also running on cloud. And on top of both the on-premise and the on-cloud platform, so we have a prominent kind of machine learning component attached to both, which is showing at the bottom half of this slide. So, we have some really challenging machine learning problems to solve. Just to give a few, right? One is that how do we identify a merchant given the raw transaction data, right? So like you see at your credit card statement, sometimes it's really hard for you to figure out what's a merchant, right? So, we use a lot of machine learning, text mining, and all these kind of advanced technology to help us do that. And the other part is, given we understand all the purchase behavior, you buy at McDonald's, you buy at Macy's, you go to Walmart 3 times a week, right? How do we build a predictive model so we know you are like a frequent kind of fast food goer, right? Profiling, scoring, all these kind of things. It's another machine learning use case. So that's the architecture we use to help us address all the business problems. So now let's get into the hybrid platform, why we are doing it that way, right? So actually, a large part of it is driven by the business requirement, being that we are dealing with a really sensitive, credit card transaction data. It's literally every individual transaction with all the details, right? Who spent how much at what place at what time, right? And also we have the 4 PIIs of these card holders, right? So we have to treat those data very, sorry. Okay, good. Yeah, sorry. So we have to treat this sensitive data very carefully. We are, PCI compliant, we're DSS compliant, so we have to, process those data on our own kind of colo, so we have the full control. And then the reason for us to put a lot of this sanitized or anonymized data on cloud is mainly for the scalability, because if we serve a lot of clients and there's like unpredictable demand, we have to address that. So that's the reason we are also extend our architecture on cloud. And then I will talk through some interesting challenges we solved along the way when we are building this platform, and finally get onto the Apex platform. So, one challenge we solved there, or one nice thing we learned from this architecture is for MapR, right? The fundamental, the core benefit we get from there is about the AFS mounting. So you can literally have one cluster, and you have many systems can share data and access its power by pushing the data through some AFS kind of setup. And then the second thing we learned and the challenge we solved is that we encountered a lot of untraditional ETO kind of scenario, right? So those ETO scenario requires a lot of in-memory processing, so it's not like easy kind of extraction, transformation, loading type of things. So we have to, for example, detect new cards. So it involves dedupe, it involves update, right? Involves a lot of lookup. So the way we make it work is we actually do a lot of distributed kind of in-memory process of our raw data, and then push the final data set into Hive, which then can be used, right, by using Hive or using Apache drill. That's something I will mention later on, and also the data gets further cleaned up and pushed into Redshift. So some nice tools worth noting is that Apache drill, it's a very powerful real-time query engine. And then, for machine learning side, we use H2O. And then, for the quick kind of data exploration, we found that Redash is very useful. And another nice thing of all these 3 tools, they are free. So now coming to the future plan, right? So for Apex, our current platform, it doesn't stress much on the real-time processing, right? Especially in terms of the real-time data visualization, right? And also the kind of the framework or the templates for our developers to develop a new kind of data-driven applications. And also, our framework help us to address some critical data issues like, some kind of abnormal data change or, fluctuation of the transactions, the sales amount, blah, blah. So, and all of this, I think, can be nicely addressed by some existing components already on the Apex platform and the kind of overall architecture. So that's something we will try out, in the very near future. So that's pretty much all we have for this presentation. Any question?
Any questions?
Good, everybody got it.
Just a quick question. Since you mentioned that you work with a number of banks and credit unions,
Yep.
what kind of compliance issue you guys face, or how do you manage that actually, because you are running on that?
Yeah, so there is a set of legislative requirements, right? He talked about PCI, GLB. These are all laws that we have to abide by, and obviously they can get very complicated. But from a how does that dictate what we do, how we do perspective? So we are audited like a bank. In fact, our auditing has been we've been rated as one of the top successfully audited entities, including banks nationwide. So we have a very, very strong culture. We've been doing this for about 15 years, that part of the business. So we have a very strong culture of that. Now, in terms of how it manifests itself from the standpoint of the use cases we are talking about. So for instance, we never give out individual level data. So we will not say you, Mr. X, bought so and so, or the way we report, or the way we deliver information. It's in cohorts. So a minimum cohort size of 50, for example. So we are not allowed to, and we never give individual level information. But the key thing is in-house, within our firewalls, we receive and we are allowed to work with individual level data. So for instance, if we are creating a targeting campaign, what we have in-house is individual level data, and we can use that as a seed to perhaps model to a larger population. So the efficacy of that from a statistical standpoint is very strong. Likewise, from a measurement perspective that I talked about, we know the exact people and what exactly they bought. So when we report, say, sales lift in response to a campaign, it is predicated on individual level data. But we never give individual level data outside. What we report is aggregated information. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yes, please.
Are you allowed to perform any machine learning on the data to gain any insight from it?
Yes, we do that all the time. So the example I was giving with the home retail brand, the number one home retail brand, it's purely machine learning driven to look at spend behavior patterns of consumers in their CRM file and obviously match that to our data set, and then to be able to run our machine learning models to say you are likely to buy paint, or you are likely to undertake a home remodel project. Absolutely. So that's
All right, and another question. Are you allowed to use data from different customers together, or you have to keep them separated?
No, the way we receive our data, we can, it's a broad data stream from across the country, right, across the United States, and we can, we don't need the merchant's permission. We can mix and match the data as we need to for our customers.
All right.
Yeah, so also varies case by case. Some data source authorize us to use their data to mix and match with others, but some say very clearly in the contracts signed with us saying their data has to be kept separate.
Right.
So we can do anything to mix it with other data sets we have.
So that's at the source level. But within a given source, if there are multiple transactions from multiple merchants, we can mix those. So, but Joey is right. There are some providers of our in our data ecosystem who will say you cannot mix my data with anybody else's. But within that, we can mix and match.
With Apex, are you also planning like your end consumers gonna consume your data in real time, like per customer at a time? I don't know, any real-time recommendation or something? Like, is that how you plan your end customers going to consume the real-time data? That's
so we'll have to see how that plays out. I mean, the use case you're talking about could be very interesting. Obviously, we need to see what the business value of that is. But another example, and Joey, please chime in and correct me. But one instance where we can see Apex, and the real-time capability coming in is as we start getting into social data. Because, if you think about it, right, from a marketing perspective, social data is very powerful. And then we have a very powerful data set. And what we're realizing is that the combinatorial value of our perspective that we are able to provide with our data, overlaid with other data sets, like, there's location data. There's other kinds of data. So similarly, social data overlaid with our data could be a very powerful tool. And we are seeing already some signs of, a pull for that. So once that happens, and if we need to do that in real time, then clearly we need a platform that can stream that data in and process it.
And there are also a bunch of other real-time applications. For example, like, real-time bidding, how to leverage our data to empower the decision-making, right? Like what kind of ad impression you should bid for given the insights we have. And also some, real-time kind of measurement related, like given someone saw the ads and very shortly that guy actually, go into a shop and made purchase, and how quickly we can bring that signal back and tell the advertiser this guy is formed a, closed loop, right? From seeing the ad to complete the transaction. So that's another application. Yeah.
Thank you.
So you can use individual data, say, okay, you predict one customer, so they're gonna buy something in the future. So can you use that data to some advertisers so they can leverage such data to do proper advertising?
Yes, so absolutely. So that's how we do targeting, but we don't do it at an individual level. We do it in cohorts of minimum 50 or some level, much greater than one.
So can you just group the users, say, okay, this kind of like this 50 user, they probably gonna have the same buy pattern, so you can just group them, and
yes.
So you can do that, right?
Yes, and because we have individual level data, the cohorts that we are able to form are very highly representative of that seed. Versus, we've all seen this, right? You may not have a child at home, but you sometimes get flyers for diapers, and you wonder why. And the measurement and the targeting methodology there is very coarse, and they're working at something like zip plus 4 data. And God forbid somebody bought or showed a propensity to buy diapers, well, you get slammed with the same ad. Versus tighter cohorting based on a very efficacious seed. So then you can do it much more accurately.
Okay. Yeah, and then we have some technology called seed suppression. So we will build our predictive model based on the actual shopping behavior at individual level, right? But when we actually use that for online targeting, for example, we will never show you the ads based on your actual kind of purchase. Like if you purchase something like a diaper, from Target, we then show you, for example,
some
milk
compliment.
or whatever, right? We will never do that because this is against the law, right? Uh-huh. So what we do is we know that you are the person. We find a similar person like you. So it's a model prediction.
Yes.
Right? It's not like you do this and we serve you this ad. Exactly. It's not like that. So we suppress that part of the the
individual
insights.
information.
Exactly. Okay. So we cannot target you because of you did something. That's illegal, right? We can do that based on you are similar with this bunch of other people, and we know that these people don't have that shopping purchase behavior, but we know somehow you guys will respond similarly to some type of ads, and we serve those ads to those people, not you, because we know you purchase something, and we show you that particular ad. It's against the
Yep.
or the law and ethic, right? So we'll never do that.
I see. So, but there's no way to associate a user, online user, with this kind of offline data, right?
No, that one-to-one reverse engineering is
Okay,
it's
so not
barred,
exist.
and we never let that happen. Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of time and effort and technology goes into ensuring that actually.
Yeah, so there are a lot of interesting technology, like how do we hide out the individual level information, but still produce accurate, consumable, insights, right, for different use cases.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so the technology enables us to do that, but that is an area we don't get into because that's a very specialized area, first of all, and it's fraught with all kinds of legislation. So we just don't get into that. But to your point, the data is there. You can run analytics on it, but we don't. That's not our business focus. We don't get into that.